The crash came sharp, glass shattering against the dirt street. Every head turned. The sheriff's office window blew wide open, shards sliding down the frame like rain. Two figures stood in the dust, thin and wild, shoulders squared against the world. The twins. One held the rock still warm in her palm. The other grinned like he wanted someone to try. The townsfolk froze. Men by the feed store muttered low. Women clutching baskets pulled their children close. The sheriff's door stayed shut, though the glass still hissed where it broke. The girl said, "Ain't you gonna come out?" The boy echoed her louder, "Ain't you?" Silence. A mutter rose from the crowd. "God help 'em," another hissed back. "No God here." The preacher stiffened but didn't step forward. No one did. The girl tossed the rock from one hand to the other. "Guess not." The boy's grin widened. "Guess cowards hide indoors." A boot scuffed the dirt at the far end of the street. A man leaned against the hitching post, hat low, coat ragged, eyes fixed on the twins. The cowboy. No one knew if he lived or just drifted through. His silence carried more weight than the sheriff's badge. The widow by the store muttered under her breath, "Wild things, untamed, won't last long." The girl heard her. "We hear you." The widow stiffened, looked away. The sheriff's door creaked. Heavy steps. His shadow fell long across the dust. He stood in the broken frame, jaw set. "Who threw it?" The boy lifted his chin. "We did." The sheriff squinted. "Both?" The girl spat in the dirt. "One threw, one dared." "That right?" "That's right." He studied them, arms crossed. The crowd held its breath. "You think glass is free?" he asked. The boy answered quick. "You think chains are?" A murmur rippled through the crowd, uneasy. The sheriff's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Town's had enough of you two." "Town ain't our keeper," the girl shot back. "You're orphans, and you're a coward behind glass." The boy's voice cracked sharp. "We ain't scared." The sheriff stepped forward, boots crunching glass. His hand twitched toward his belt. The crowd edged back, breath catching. The girl's hand lifted, rock still poised. "Try it," she said. The cowboy's voice cut through the tension, low, calm. "Put down the stone." Every head turned. The cowboy hadn't moved, but his eyes locked on hers. She sneered. "You talking to me?" He didn't blink. "Put it down." The boy laughed. "And if we don't?" The cowboy's jaw tightened. "Then you'll learn." The sheriff barked, "Stay out of this." The cowboy didn't answer. The girl weighed the rock in her palm, staring at the cowboy, not the sheriff. A hush fell heavy, thick as smoke. Finally, she dropped it. The clatter rang down the street like a bell tolling. The sheriff exhaled. "That's better." The boy stepped close to his sister, fists clenched. "We didn't lose." The sheriff pointed. "You're coming with me." "No," the girl said. "Yes," he answered. "Try," she dared. The crowd shifted, restless, waiting. No one moved to help. No one moved at all. The cowboy pushed off the post, slow steps toward the circle. Dust rose soft around his boots. He stopped between sheriff and twins. His presence alone bent the air. The sheriff snapped, "Move aside." The cowboy said nothing. "Last chance," the sheriff warned. The boy's voice cut in. "Scared, Sheriff?" The sheriff's face burned red. "Scared? Of rats?" The girl hissed, "We bite." The cowboy finally spoke. "Enough." The sheriff turned, angry. "This your business?" The cowboy's eyes stayed steady. "Now it is." The crowd gasped. The widow whispered, "Lord have mercy." The sheriff's hand gripped the butt of his pistol. The cowboy didn't move, didn't blink. Silence stretched long. The girl stepped forward, voice sharp. "He's braver than you." The boy added, "And he don't even talk much." Laughter bubbled in the crowd, nervous, broken. The sheriff stiffened. His hand slid from the pistol. He spat in the dirt. "This ain't over." He turned back inside, door slamming like thunder. The twins stood still, breath fast. The girl whispered, "Why'd you help?" The cowboy didn't answer. The boy asked louder, "Why?" The cowboy looked past them, past the crowd, into nothing. "Didn't help," he muttered. "Stopped a killing." The girl studied him. "That makes you ours now." The boy grinned. "Yeah, ours." The cowboy adjusted his hat. "Don't claim me." "Too late," the girl said. The crowd began to scatter, whispers trailing. They'll bring ruin. He's cursed now. That man's a fool. The widow lingered. You'll regret it, she told the cowboy. He didn't answer. The twins stood in the broken street, glass at their feet, dust in their lungs, defiance burning bright. The cowboy walked away, slow, ragged coat flapping in the wind. He didn't look back, but his shadow stretched long across the dirt, almost touching theirs. The boy leaned close to his sister. We won. She shook her head. No. We started. The sheriff's window gaped empty, black and jagged, a wound staring out at the town. The cowboy's silence carried it all away. The glass still glittered in the dirt when the sheriff stepped out again, boots grinding on the shards. His hand rested near his belt, not gripping, just close enough to remind everyone what he carried. The twins hadn't moved. The girl's fingers closed around another rock, heavier than the first. The boy's jaw clenched tight, like he was ready to throw himself against anyone who dared reach for them. The crowd murmured low, their whispers like gnats around a wound. One man muttered, "Sheriff ought to teach 'em." Another hissed back, "Teach 'em and hang for it." The widow at the storefront shook her head, voice sharp enough to carry. "They'll hang 'em like dogs if they keep on." The girl snapped her head toward her. "Say it again." The widow froze. The boy stepped forward, voice cracking but loud. "Say it." The sheriff raised his palm. "Enough." The girl lifted the rock higher. "You come closer, I throw." The sheriff's eyes narrowed. "You think you scare me?" The boy's grin was quick and hard. "We don't care what you fear." The crowd edged back, unsure where to look. Mothers pulled children behind skirts. Men spat and folded arms, unwilling to take sides, unwilling to leave. The sheriff's voice sharpened. "Town's sick of you two." The girl fired back. "Town's weak. Town feeds you. Town starves us. You want jail? We want nothing." The boy leaned in, eyes burning. "We want you gone." The sheriff's hand twitched again toward the pistol. The crowd stiffened, knowing what came next. Then the cowboy's voice cut through, low and steady. "Put down the stone." Every head turned. The cowboy stood near the post still, shoulders loose but eyes locked straight on the girl. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried deeper than the sheriff's bark. The girl scoffed. "Not yours to say." The boy barked a laugh. "He thinks we listen." The cowboy didn't move. "Put it down." The sheriff snapped. "Stay out of this." The cowboy's gaze never left the girl. "Don't want to bury kids today." The rock weighed heavy in her hand. Her arm trembled, not from weakness, but from something she couldn't name. She glanced at her brother. He shook his head, whispering low, "Don't drop it. They'll think we're scared." The girl gritted her teeth. "Not scared." "Then hold it." "Then I will." The cowboy spoke again. "One stone leads to rope." The boy shot back, "And silence leads to graves." The sheriff barked a laugh. "Ugly and short. Graves either way." The crowd stirred at that, mutters spreading like brush fire. "He'll do it. No shame in it. Best end for wild ones." The girl's eyes darted from the sheriff to the cowboy, torn between defiance and the strange weight in the cowboy's words. She lifted the rock higher. The sheriff's voice was sharp. "Last warning." The boy growled, "You don't warn us." The widow muttered again, voice brittle. "Wild animals die the same." The girl snapped, "We hear you." Her arm drew back, ready to throw. The cowboy stepped forward then, just one slow step into the dust. "Put it down." The girl froze. The boy hissed, "Don't you dare." The sheriff tensed, hand gripping the pistol now. The crowd's breath caught. The girl's arm shook harder, her eyes locked on the cowboy, not the sheriff. Something in his stare made the stone feel heavier, heavier, until her fingers couldn't hold. The rock slipped, fell hard to the dirt. The clatter cracked the silence wide open. The sheriff exhaled like a man cheated. "That's better." The boy spun on his sister, fury raw. "You gave in." She snapped back. "I didn't." "You dropped it. He made me." The cowboy's voice cut again, even. "No one made you." The sheriff's voice dripped with scorn. "So it takes a drifter to tame you." The boy growled, "No one tames us." The girl said quieter, "We ain't yours." The sheriff stepped forward, testing. The cowboy shifted, body angled just enough to block. The sheriff stopped. "What are you doing?" The cowboy's answer was flat. "Keeping them alive." The widow scoffed. Alive don't mean fit." The cowboy ignored her. The boy spat in the dirt, anger hot. "We don't need him." The girl whispered, "Maybe we do." The sheriff laughed, sharp, harsh. "You'll regret standing with them." The cowboy didn't blink. "Maybe." The sheriff stepped back, spit hitting the ground. "Town's not done with this." He turned, boots crunching through glass, and slammed the office door behind him. The crowd held still, waiting. Slowly they began to break apart, whispers clinging to the air. "Won't last. He's cursed." "Sheriff will come harder." The widow lingered longer, eyes cold. "They'll be your ruin, cowboy." He didn't answer. The twins stood in the dirt, breathing hard, eyes bright with anger and something else. The boy hissed, "We should have thrown it." The girl muttered, "He stopped me." The boy glared at the cowboy. "Why?" The cowboy's voice was quiet. "Seen enough bodies." The girl asked, "Ours?" He looked at her for the first time, steady. "Yours too." The boy scoffed. "We ain't afraid." The cowboy turned away. "That's the danger." The girl whispered after him, "Why care?" He didn't answer. His silence weighed more than any words. The sheriff's window yawned open behind them, jagged teeth of glass catching the fading light. The street was littered with fragments, sharp and glinting. The town had seen enough to know this fight wasn't finished. The twins stood together, restless, fierce. The crowd gone, the sheriff behind his door, the widow watching from her store, and the cowboy walking away slow, shoulders heavy, hat low, each step sinking into the dust. The boy muttered, "We won't forget." The girl said, "Neither will he." And the broken window stared down at all of them, empty, waiting. The town hall smelled of dust and sweat. Long benches creaked beneath men who shifted nervously, waiting for the argument to break open. The sheriff stood at the front, jaw set, hand resting heavy on the table. The twins sat against the wall, arms crossed, faces blank as stone. The sheriff's voice cut sharp. "They broke my window, mocked the badge, threatened me in the street. This town don't need wild dogs running loose. Best place for 'em is the jail." The preacher rose from his seat, robes brushing the floor, his voice carried thin, almost pleading. "They are children, Sheriff, not beasts. The good book says every lost lamb can be saved." The boy sneered. "We ain't lambs." The girl spat in the dirt corner. "We ain't lost." The preacher flinched, but kept on. "They need guidance, not iron bars. A firm hand, a kind hand." The widow's voice cut in from the benches, low but steady. "What they need is claiming. Ain't no one ever took them in. No kin, no blood. No one put their name on them. Children without a name grow into trouble." The girl snapped back. "We got names." The widow didn't blink. "Names don't mean belonging." The boy smirked. "Don't want belonging." The sheriff slammed his fist on the table. "Hear that? Don't want saving. Don't want belonging. They want chaos. Jail's the only place for 'em." The preacher shook his head. "Locking them away hardens their spirit." The sheriff barked. "Spirit? They spit on the law." The girl muttered, "Law ain't worth spit." The hall went silent. The sheriff leaned forward, eyes burning. "You think this town will keep tolerating you? You think breaking glass and throwing rocks makes you strong? It makes you targets. And targets don't live long." The boy grinned, fearless. "Then aim." Gasps rippled through the benches. The preacher whispered a prayer. The widow shook her head. Then the cowboy's voice carried from the back, steady and low. "I'll take them." All heads turned. He leaned against the doorframe, hat low, arms crossed. His words sank heavy into the room. The sheriff spat. "What?" The cowboy stepped forward. "I'll take 'em, feed 'em, keep 'em out your way." The widow's eyes narrowed. "You? You ain't got kin. Ain't got roof fit for yourself." The cowboy didn't flinch. "Still better than a cell." The sheriff's face twisted. "You'll regret it. Town'll turn on you same as them." The cowboy's answer was simple. "Then let it." The preacher nodded fast, desperate. "Yes, yes, let the man take them. A home is better than a jail." The widow's voice was bitter. "A shack don't make a home. He can't even tame himself." The girl whispered to her brother, "Why is he doing this?" The boy shrugged. "Don't matter. We ain't his." The sheriff barked a laugh. "Hear that? Even they don't want you." The cowboy's eyes never left the twins. I didn't ask if they wanted me. The boy's grin faded. Then why? The cowboy said nothing more, just waited. The preacher spread his arms. It's settled then. He takes them, no chains, no gallows. The sheriff slammed his fist again. This ain't settled. I'm the law. The cowboy's voice cut through, calm but sharp. Law don't mean much if it hangs children. The hall fell into thick silence. The benches creaked as men shifted, eyes darting between sheriff and cowboy. The widow stood, smoothing her apron. Mark my words. You carry their weight. You carry their curse. The cowboy didn't answer. The girl stood too, defiant. We don't need him. The boy echoed. We don't. The cowboy walked forward slow, stopping just in front of them. He looked down, steady, unreadable. Then walk out alone. See how long you last. The girl glared. The boy opened his mouth, but no words came. The sheriff sneered. He's bluffing. Town won't let you drag them away. The cowboy finally looked at him. Who's gonna stop me? The sheriff's hand twitched near his gun, but the room stayed still. No one moved. No one breathed. The sheriff's eyes darted to the benches, seeking support. The men stared at the floor. No one stood with him. The widow shook her head. Cowards, all of you. The preacher whispered again. Every lamb deserves a shepherd. The twins stood between them all, caught in the weight of voices, yet untouched. The girl whispered to her brother, Maybe we test him. The boy smirked faintly. Maybe we break him. The cowboy heard but didn't respond. He only turned and walked toward the door. He stopped in the frame, looked back once. Come or don't. The girl stared hard at his back. He thinks we'll follow. The boy spat on the floor. We won't. But their feet moved anyway, carrying them toward the door. The sheriff cursed under his breath. Fools. The widow muttered again, louder this time. They'll bury him. Just wait. The cowboy held the door open, never looking down at them. The twins stepped past, out into the street. The hall stayed silent long after they were gone. The sheriff sank into his chair, face red. He'll regret it. The preacher bowed his head. Or maybe he won't. The widow's voice broke the stillness, cold as stone. Regret don't wait long in this town. And outside, dust rose where the cowboy walked, the twins trailing close behind, their shadows tangled with his, already tied whether they wanted or not. The cabin sat low against the hill, more shadow than shelter, boards warped, roof sagging, chimney leaning like it might give up any moment. The cowboy walked ahead without a word, coat dragging in the dust. The twins trailed behind, muttering low to each other. The boy said, This ain't a home. The girl answered, It's worse. The cowboy stopped at the door. He pushed it open, hinges groaning loud in the quiet. He stepped inside, the dim shape of him swallowed in the gloom. The twins stood back. The boy crossed his arms. We ain't going in. The girl nodded. We ain't staying. The cowboy reappeared in the doorway, eyes flat. Then leave hungry. The boy laughed sharp. We can feed ourselves. The cowboy looked past him toward the dark line of trees. Then try. The girl's jaw tightened. We ain't scared of woods. The cowboy didn't argue. He just leaned against the frame, arms crossed like he had all night. The wind picked up cold and thin. Dust spun at their feet. The boy muttered, He thinks we'll break. The girl whispered, Let him think it. The cowboy finally spoke again. Choice is yours. Inside's dry. Fire's warm. Food's plain, but enough. The boy spat in the dirt. We ain't begging. No one asked you to. The girl frowned. You want us here? The cowboy shook his head once. Don't matter what I want. The boy snapped. Then why? The cowboy looked at him steady. Because law wanted you chained. I don't. Silence stretched long. The twins stared at him, suspicious, defiant. The girl whispered, He's lying. The boy muttered, All grown folk lie. The cowboy stepped back inside, leaving the door wide open. Smoke drifted from the chimney, thin but steady. The twins stood still, arms locked tight across their chests. The boy kicked a rock into the dirt. I'd rather starve. The girl's stomach growled, loud enough to betray her. She scowled, embarrassed. The boy whispered, We can hunt. In the dark, she shot back. He didn't answer. The wind turned colder. Shadows thickened in the trees. Somewhere a coyote yipped, sharp and distant. The girl shivered but stood firm. He won't win. The boy nodded. Not tonight. Inside, a chair scraped. The smell of beans and wood smoke drifted out the door. The boy muttered, "He's doing it on purpose." The girl whispered, "Course he is." They waited longer, the night settling hard around them. The stars came sharp, the moon thin as a blade. Their feet ached, their arms trembled. Finally, the cowboy's voice carried out, calm, flat. "Last chance before the coyotes start circling." The boy hissed, "He don't scare me." The girl whispered back, "He scares them, though." The boy swallowed, glancing toward the trees. The sounds of the night crept closer, the brush rustling with things unseen. The girl shifted her weight, arms loosening. She whispered, "Maybe just for tonight." The boy shook his head. "He'll trap us." She leaned closer. "And if we freeze?" The boy didn't answer. His stomach growled loud. The girl sighed. "One night, not more." Together they stepped toward the door. Slow, wary. The cowboy didn't move, didn't smile, didn't speak. He just watched them cross the threshold. Inside, the cabin was dark but not unfriendly. A small fire burned low in the hearth. A table stood rough and uneven, with 2 bowls waiting. The cowboy set a third. The boy narrowed his eyes. "You planned this." The cowboy shrugged. "Planned supper." The girl stared at the bowls. "Why 3?" "'Cause there's 3. The boy's voice was sharp. "We ain't yours." The cowboy met his stare. "Never said you were." The girl sat first, dropping hard into the chair. The boy hesitated, then followed, arms still crossed tight across his chest. The cowboy ladled beans into the bowls. He ate first, slow, steady, saying nothing. The twins watched, suspicious. Finally, the girl took a bite. The boy followed. Silence filled the cabin, broken only by chewing and the crack of fire. The boy finally muttered, "Food's plain." The cowboy nodded. "Plain keeps you alive." The girl studied him. "You don't talk much." The cowboy didn't look up. "Enough." The boy scoffed. "Enough for who?" "For me." The girl pressed. "What about us?" The cowboy's eyes lifted, steady, unblinking. "You'll decide." The boy frowned. "Decide what?" "If you stay." The girl swallowed another bite. "And if we don't?" The cowboy pointed toward the door. "Then walk." The boy slammed his spoon down. "You think we're weak?" The cowboy shook his head. "I think you're hungry." Silence again. The fire cracked louder. The girl leaned closer to her brother, whispering low, "We'll leave at dawn." He nodded, jaw tight. "Dawn." The cowboy heard, but he said nothing. The meal ended quiet. The cowboy set his bowl aside, stretched out in the corner chair, hat tipped low. The fire dimmed to embers. The twins sat stiff at the table, eyes darting to the door. They whispered again. The boy said, "We'll run when he sleeps." The girl shook her head. "Too dark." "We can." "You'll get lost." "So?" "So we'll die." He didn't answer. The cowboy's voice came from the corner, low but clear. "Sleep. You'll need it." The boy snapped. "We don't take orders." The cowboy muttered, "Didn't give one." The girl rubbed her arms. The cold seeped through the cabin walls. She whispered, "One night." The boy whispered back, "One night." The cowboy closed his eyes, silent again. The twins sat until their eyelids grew heavy, until the fire sank low, until the dark pressed too hard to fight. Finally, they lay on the floor near the hearth, curled against each other, still dressed, still ready to run. The cowboy didn't move. His breathing was slow, steady, the sound of a man used to nights without trust. Outside, coyotes howled, closer now. The cabin stood against the cold, holding its uneasy truce. Inside, 3 figures rested, bound not by choice, not by trust, but by hunger and the dark. The night swallowed the hill whole, leaving only the faint smoke of the chimney curling into the black. The fire had burned to ash when the girl shook her brother awake. Her whisper was sharp in the dark. "Now." The boy rubbed his eyes, groggy but willing. "He's asleep." She glanced toward the corner. The cowboy sat in his chair, hat tipped low, body still. She couldn't tell if his chest moved or not. "Looks it." The boy grinned faint. "Then we go." They slipped to their feet, careful not to stir the floorboards. The girl lifted the latch, easing the door open inch by inch until the cold spilled inside. The boy nodded, excitement tight in his jaw. They stepped out into the night. The woods loomed black and endless. The air bit sharp against their skin. They didn't speak, only ran, low and fast across the yard, then into the brush, boots crunching dry leaves. The boy whispered between breaths, "We're free." The girl muttered, "Not yet." They pressed deeper, the cabin light fading behind them. The silence of the woods felt thick, unnatural. Every step echoed too loud. Then came the sound. A low growl, stretched and rolling. Another answered from the other side. The boy froze. Wolves. The girl swallowed hard. "Keep moving." They tried, but the growls circled them closer, heavier. Snaps of branches, the crunch of paws, yellow eyes glinting in the dark. The boy gripped her hand. "What now?" The girl forced steady words. "Don't run." But his breath came fast, shallow, panic pushing him forward. "They'll tear us." Another growl, louder, teeth flashing in the moonlight. The circle tightened. The twins pressed back to back, hands locked, hearts pounding. The boy whispered, "We're dead." The girl hissed, "Shut up." The brush cracked behind them. A howl rose high, answered by more. The night filled with it, a sound too wild to fight. Then a new light cut through, faint but steady. A lantern swung slow, growing brighter. Boots crunched on the leaves. The cowboy stepped into the clearing, rifle in one hand, lantern in the other. His shadow stretched long, falling across the twins. The wolves stilled, eyes flicking toward him. The cowboy raised the rifle, fired into the air. The shot split the dark. The pack scattered, growls fading as they melted into the trees. Silence crashed back heavy. The twins stood shaking, breath ragged. The boy muttered, "You followed us." The cowboy lowered the rifle, steady as stone. "No, I waited." The girl snapped, "We weren't scared." The cowboy's gaze stayed on hers. "Then why freeze?" She didn't answer. The boy clenched his fists. "We could have fought." "With what?" the cowboy asked. The boy's voice cracked. "We'd figure something." The cowboy took a step closer, lantern glow brushing their faces. His voice was calm but cold. "You leave. You die." The girl's lips pressed tight. "Not true. Truth don't care if you believe." The boy looked down, shame crawling into his chest. "We didn't need saving." The cowboy's eyes flicked to the trees. "You'll tell yourself that, till teeth are in your throat." The girl pulled her brother's arm. "We're not going back." The cowboy tilted his head toward the dark woods. "Then stay." They turned. But the sound of another growl rippled far off. Their bodies stiffened. The boy's hand trembled in hers. The cowboy's voice carried again, quiet but final. "Come or don't, but choose now." The twins exchanged a look, defiance draining under the weight of fear. The girl muttered, "Just tonight." The boy whispered back, "Just tonight." They followed. The cowboy walked ahead, lantern swinging, rifle slung over his shoulder. The glow cut a narrow path through the dark, guiding them step by step back toward the cabin. The twins trailed close, their earlier bravado gone, silence heavy between them. The boy whispered, "We shouldn't have left." The girl shot him a look. "Don't say it." He muttered, "You thought it too." She bit her lip, eyes darting to the cowboy's back. "He knew." The cowboy didn't turn. "I knew." The boy spat, embarrassed. "You ain't smart, just lucky." The cowboy said nothing. They reached the clearing. The cabin waited, smoke faint in the moonlight. The cowboy stopped at the door, turned to them. "Inside." The girl squared her shoulders. "You don't own us." "Didn't say I did." The boy muttered, "We don't thank you." "Didn't ask." The girl hesitated, then stepped inside. The boy followed, head low. The cowboy shut the door behind them, bolting it with a heavy thud. He set the rifle against the wall, lantern on the table. The fire caught again, warm against the cold seeping through the cracks. The twins dropped near the hearth, arms around their knees, eyes darting to the door as if the wolves might still slip through. The boy whispered, "We should have stayed put." The girl muttered, "We'll try again." The cowboy leaned in the corner, voice steady. "You'll try. You'll fail." The boy snapped, We don't fail. Then why you back here alive? The boy looked down, lips pressed tight. The girl whispered, He's right. The boy glared at her. Don't say that. But she said it again. Softer. He's right. The cowboy closed his eyes, hat low. Sleep. You'll need it. The twins huddled together, hearts still pounding, fear settling deep where defiance once burned. They didn't thank him. They didn't speak again, but they didn't leave either. Outside, the wolves circled unseen, howls fading into the night. Inside, silence stretched long, broken only by the fire's crackle. For the first time, the twins stayed because they were safer, not stronger. And though neither said it, they knew the cowboy's words would follow them, heavy as the night itself. You leave. You die. The knock came hard, rattling the door against its frame. The twins froze where they sat near the hearth, spoons halfway to their mouths. The cowboy didn't move at first. He just set his bowl down slow, eyes narrowing. The knock came again, louder. The boy whispered, Don't open. The girl hissed, It's him. The cowboy stood, boots heavy on the floorboards. He unbolted the door and pulled it wide. The sheriff filled the frame, hat low, jaw tight. The sheriff's voice was cold. Town won't stand for this. The cowboy's answer was blunt. Town don't feed 'em, I do. The sheriff's eyes flicked past him, landing on the twins. They sat stiff against the fire, staring back, unflinching. The boy sneered. What do you want? The sheriff ignored him. His gaze slid to the corner where the rifle leaned against the doorframe. He didn't reach for it, but his stare lingered. The girl said, You lost once already. The sheriff's lip curled. I didn't lose. You walked away. The boy shot back. The sheriff's eyes cut back to the cowboy. You think this is over? The cowboy's tone was flat. It ain't begun. The sheriff stepped one boot inside, slow, testing. The cowboy didn't move, but the space between them thickened. The girl whispered to her brother, He's scared. The boy muttered back, Don't look it. The sheriff barked, Quiet. Both of you. The girl spat in the fire. Make us. The sheriff's face darkened. He turned back to the cowboy. You can't keep them. Town won't have it. Strays turn wild. Wild turns violent. Then blood spills. The cowboy's eyes stayed steady. Blood already spilled. Yours if you ain't careful. The crowd outside murmured, footsteps shifting. The twins hadn't noticed before, but shadows flickered through the cracks in the walls. Townsfolk had followed, watching, listening. The boy muttered, He brought them. The girl said louder, Cowards hiding outside. The sheriff ignored her, eyes locked on the cowboy. You're protecting trouble. And when it burns, don't say I didn't warn you. The cowboy leaned a shoulder against the frame, calm. Warning, don't stop fire. Work does, and you ain't working. The sheriff's jaw tightened. You really want this fight? The cowboy's voice was quiet. Don't want nothing. Just feeding who needs it. The boy barked a laugh. That's all it takes to scare him? The sheriff snapped. Shut your mouth, boy. The boy leaned forward, grinned sharp. Or what? Shoot me, in front of all of them. He jerked his chin toward the door, toward the unseen crowd. The sheriff's nostrils flared. He didn't answer. The girl muttered, He ain't got the stomach. The sheriff pointed at the cowboy. They'll turn on you. Mark my words. You'll carry their sins with yours. The cowboy's voice stayed even. Don't carry sin, just rifles and food. The sheriff's eyes darted once more to the rifle leaning by the door. His lips pressed thin like the sight burned him. The cowboy added, You step closer, you find out who carries faster. The silence that followed was heavy. The sheriff finally stepped back, out into the cold. His voice carried loud enough for the crowd to hear. He'll regret this, and when he does, don't ask me for mercy. The cowboy shut the door slow, bolting it again. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The girl whispered, He's coming back. The boy nodded, with more. The cowboy sat back at the table, picking up his bowl again. Then eat while you can. The boy frowned. That's it. That's it. The girl shook her head. You don't care if he kills you. The cowboy ate, slow and steady. Care don't change nothing. The twins exchanged a look, unsettled. For the first time, they saw it plain. The sheriff's power wasn't unshakable. The cowboy's silence bent him in ways shouting never did. Outside, footsteps faded, voices trailing back toward town. The night settled heavy again. But the air inside the cabin stayed charged, like gunpowder waiting for a spark. The boy whispered, "He'll bring rope." The girl muttered, "And fire." The cowboy didn't look up. "Then we'll see who burns first." The boy swallowed hard, suddenly unsure if the man's calm was strength or madness. The girl leaned closer, voice low. Maybe both. They finished their meal in silence, ears straining for sounds outside. Every creak of the cabin felt louder, every gust of wind like footsteps returning. The cowboy leaned back in his chair, hat low, rifle still within reach. He didn't speak again, but his presence filled the room heavier than words. The twins curled near the fire, whispering together. The boy said, "He's not scared." The girl muttered, "He should be." The boy asked, "What if he ain't right in the head?" The girl answered, "Then maybe that's what saves us." The cowboy sat unmoving, listening to the night breathe through the cracks. The sheriff's words lingered in the smoke, but so did his own. "Town don't feed 'em. I do." And for the first time, the twins wondered if they belonged more inside this cabin than out in the street. The morning came gray and slow. The cowboy left early, rifle slung, heading toward the tree line. The twins watched him go from the porch, eyes narrow, waiting until he was gone. The boy said, "We should see what he hides." The girl muttered, "He hides plenty." They moved across the yard, boots crunching frost, past the fence, past the sagging barn, until the brush opened on a patch of ground no one tended. There it was, an old well, stones cracked, covered with warped boards and a rusted chain. Moss crawled over the edges, and the air around it felt colder. The boy crouched low, prying at the boards. "Help me." The girl shook her head. "Don't. You scared," she hissed. "Something's wrong with it." He grinned, reckless. "That's why." Together they shoved at the boards until one slipped, clattering across the ground. A hole gaped below, dark and deep, swallowing the light. The smell that rose was damp, sour, almost like rot. The boy peered in. "Ain't nothing down there." The girl leaned closer, uneasy. "Don't look long." "Why not?" "Feels like it's looking back." The boy laughed, but the sound rang hollow. He dropped a pebble in. It rattled, fell, then splashed faint far below. The girl whispered, "You hear that?" "What?" "Like a voice." The boy frowned. "Ain't no voice." She gripped his arm. "Listen." For a moment, there was only wind through the trees. Then, faint, a sound rose from the dark, a whisper, soft, broken, almost a sob. The girl's breath caught. "Mama." The boy yanked her back. "Stop it. Ain't her." But she stared into the black, eyes wide, heart pounding. "I heard her." The cowboy's voice cracked behind them, sharp as a whip. "Get away from it." They spun. He stood a few feet back, face hard, rifle slung at his shoulder. The boy snapped, "It's just a hole." The cowboy's tone cut flat. "Don't touch that well." The girl whispered, "Why?" His jaw tightened. "Because I said." The boy sneered. "Not an answer." The cowboy stepped forward, yanked the board back over the gap, chained it tight. His eyes never left them. "Some places don't need answers. They need leaving." The girl's voice shook. "But I heard." "No." The cowboy cut in, low and final. "You didn't." The boy muttered, "Liar." The cowboy turned, walking back toward the cabin. "Stay away, or you'll wish you had." The twins followed, but their whispers trailed close. The boy said, "He's scared of it." The girl nodded. "Means we should be too." That night, the fire burned low. The cowboy sat in his chair, hat tipped, silent. The twins curled near the hearth, pretending to sleep. But the girl's eyes stayed open, staring at the dark door. The wind moaned outside, rattling the boards. In the stillness, she heard it again. A voice, faint, drifting through the cracks. A woman's voice, soft and sad, calling her name. She sat up fast, breath sharp. "Mama?" The boy stirred beside her. "What?" "Shh, listen." He frowned, half asleep. "Don't start." But she was trembling, eyes wet. "She's calling." The boy sat up too, listening hard. The only sound was the fire snapping. He shook his head. "Ain't nothing. I swear." Her whisper cracked. I know her voice." The boy grabbed her arm. "Don't go." She pulled free, staring at the door. The voice came again, softer, like it floated on wind. She rose to her feet, heart racing, steps slow toward the door. The cowboy's voice cut through the dark. "Sit down." She froze. His eyes gleamed from under the hat fixed on her. She whispered, "Did you hear her?" "No." "You lying." His tone was hard. "Sit down." Her hands shook. She turned back, lowering herself beside her brother. He clutched her arm tight, whispering, "Don't listen." She pressed her face into her knees, rocking slow. It was her. The cowboy didn't speak again. He sat still, watching the flames die low, listening to the silence press heavy against the walls. The boy leaned close, voice fierce but quiet. "Don't believe it." The girl whispered back, "But I do." Outside, the wind howled again, but beneath it, faint, something lingered. A whisper like memory, like grief, like the dead not ready to let go. The cabin held them tight, but the well waited dark and patient just beyond the fence. The cabin smelled of smoke sharper than usual. The girl noticed first, sitting by the hearth with her knees pulled tight. The boy caught it too, wrinkling his nose. The cowboy stood over the stove, tossing in folded papers one by one. Flames licked high, chewing fast. The boy squinted. "What's that?" The cowboy didn't answer. He fed another paper into the fire, shutting the stove door hard. The girl frowned. "Looked like letters." The cowboy muttered, "Not yours to know." The boy stood quick. "Why hide it then?" "Because it ain't for you." The girl snapped, "We live here too." "You live here tonight," the cowboy said. The boy's voice rose. "You burning secrets." The cowboy turned his head, eyes flat. "Sit down." The girl shot back, "We ain't dogs." Silence pressed heavy, only the hiss of burning paper breaking it. The boy stepped closer. "Whose names were on 'em?" The cowboy said nothing, jaw tight. The girl pushed harder. "You scared we'll know." "Not yours to know," he repeated, sharp this time. The boy slammed his fist against the table. "You think we're stupid?" The cowboy's tone snapped. "Think you're children? That's worse." The girl hissed, "We've buried more than you ever have." The cowboy's eyes flashed. "Then bury this too." The boy's face twisted with anger. "You're no better than them." The words landed like a strike. The cowboy stiffened, hand tightening on the stove handle. The flames flared high inside, roaring for a moment before settling again. His shoulders hunched like he carried a sudden weight. The girl saw it. "We're right." The boy nodded, voice bitter. "You hide like they did. Burn the truth same way." The cowboy turned, stepping closer. His voice was low, dangerous. "You don't know what you're talking about." The girl shot back, "Then tell us." His silence stretched long. He looked at the stove, smoke curling, then back at them. "No." The boy scoffed. "Coward!" The cowboy's jaw clenched. His hand hovered near the table edge, steadying himself. He breathed once, twice. "I kept you fed. I kept you alive. That's what matters." The girl's voice was sharp. "Alive don't mean free," the cowboy snapped. "Free don't mean alive." The boy glared. "So we're your prisoners." The cowboy shook his head slow. "You're your own. I don't own you." "Then why burn?" the girl pressed. His voice cracked rough. "Because some things rot worse if they're left lying around." The boy muttered, "That's a lie." The cowboy's eyes turned cold. "Believe what you want." The girl leaned forward, whisper sharp. "It was about us." The cowboy's silence said enough. The boy shouted, "Say it." The cowboy snapped, voice like a whip. "Not yours to know." The fire inside the stove roared, sparks spitting out through the cracks. The twins flinched back, but their eyes never left him. The girl muttered, "Thought you were different." The boy added, "Turns out you're the same." The cowboy's hand trembled just once, then stilled. He turned back to the stove, feeding the last paper into the flames. The girl whispered, almost to herself, "We trusted you." The cowboy didn't turn. His voice was low, worn. "Mistake." The boy spat in the dirt corner. "Then we're done." The cowboy shut the stove door hard, the sound echoing like a shot. "You've been done since the day you picked up that stone." The room went silent, thick and choking. The girl's eyes burned. "So that's it?" The cowboy finally faced them, steady but tired. "That's it." The boy's chest heaved, words tumbling sharp. "You ain't a savior. You ain't better than the law. You're no better than them." The cowboy's voice dropped, quiet but heavy. "Maybe worse." The fire flared high again, shadows leaping across the cabin walls, painting their faces fierce and broken. The girl's voice cracked. "We'll leave." The cowboy nodded once. "Doors open." The boy grabbed her arm. "Come on." But she hesitated, eyes locked on the flames. Her voice was low, trembling. "What if he's right?" The boy's face twisted. "Don't matter." The cowboy stepped back into his chair, sinking heavy. He tipped his hat low, staring into the dark. The twins stood by the door, caught between the fire and the cold outside. Their anger burned, but so did something deeper, heavier, the first crack in the silence that bound them together. The girl whispered, "I heard Mama." The boy snapped, "Not now." She pointed toward the stove. "She was in the well. He knows it." The cowboy's voice came sharp, final. "Don't speak of it again." The boy yanked her arm. "Then we leave." But they didn't. Their feet stayed rooted, anger battling fear, silence binding them tighter than choice. The fire roared once more, then dimmed to a steady glow, leaving the cabin heavy with smoke and unspoken truths. The cowboy sat still, hands clasped, head bowed. The twins watched him like an enemy, but they didn't step outside. The night pressed close. The papers were gone, burned to ash, but the questions stayed sharp, circling the cabin like wolves, and none of them slept. The shouting started before noon. Dust kicked up in the street, children crying, mothers dragging them back. The twins stood at the center, fists raw, blood smudged on their faces. The sheriff gripped each by the arm, yanking them forward like trophies. The boy spat, lips split. "They hit first." The girl twisted against his hold. "We didn't start it." The sheriff barked. "Don't matter who started, you ended." The crowd gathered quick. Men from the store, women from the church, kids peeking out from behind skirts. Whispers spread faster than fire. The widow stepped forward, eyes sharp. "Enough's enough. They don't belong here." The preacher wrung his hands. "They are children." The widow cut him off. "Children don't bleed other children in the street." The sheriff shoved the twins into the dirt. "Town's right. Time they answer for it." The boy scrambled up, chest heaving. "We won't bow." The girl wiped blood from her mouth. "We won't beg." The sheriff sneered. "You won't need to." "Rope don't ask." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The preacher shouted, "This is madness." The sheriff turned on him. "Madness is letting wild dogs tear through our children. They stand trial." The girl hissed, "Your trial's a noose." The boy grinned through blood. "Hang us then. See if the crowd sleeps easy." The crowd murmured, restless, torn between fear and anger. The sheriff raised his hand, silencing them. "They'll face judgment right here." Then a new voice carried down the street, calm but heavy. "If they stand trial, so do you all." Heads turned. The cowboy walked slow, rifle slung across his shoulder, hat low. His boots cut steady through the dust until he stopped at the edge of the circle. His eyes swept the crowd, then locked on the sheriff. The sheriff's grip on his belt tightened. "This ain't your fight." The cowboy's voice stayed flat. "It is now." The boy's grin widened. "Told you." The girl whispered, "Shut up." The sheriff growled, "What's that supposed to mean? You threatening the town?" The cowboy's eyes narrowed. "Not a threat, a truth. If they're guilty, so are you. Every one of you that left 'em without a name, without food, without kin." The widow's face flushed. "Don't you dare." The cowboy didn't blink. "Daring's all that's left." The crowd stilled. Whispers died. The preacher lowered his head, ashamed. Mothers clutched children tighter, looking anywhere but at him. The sheriff barked, "Don't twist this. They're violent. They're broken." The cowboy's voice cut through. "They're what you made 'em." The girl's breath caught. The boy looked at her, but she kept her eyes on the ground. The sheriff's voice cracked with anger. "You defend them after they bloodied half the schoolyard." The cowboy's reply was sharp, better than bleeding alone in the dirt. "Which is what you left 'em to." The boy muttered, "He's right." The girl whispered, "Shut up." The sheriff snapped, "Enough talk. This town will have order." The cowboy shifted the rifle from his shoulder, letting it rest easy in his hands. He didn't aim, but the weight of it filled the air. "Then let's have it. A trial. Start with who abandoned them first." The widow shouted, "Don't listen to him. He's poison." But no one moved. The men who'd muttered before now kept their mouths shut. The women lowered their eyes. The preacher whispered, "Lord, forgive us." The sheriff's face turned red. "Don't stand there judging us like you're clean." The cowboy's voice dropped lower. "I'm not clean, but I didn't turn away when they were starving." The boy shouted, "Tell them." The girl whispered, "Stop." The sheriff yanked his gun from the holster, aiming at the cowboy. "You talk like that again, and you die." The cowboy didn't flinch. "Kill me in front of them all, then the trial's yours alone." The crowd froze. Every eye was on the sheriff's trembling hand. The girl muttered, "He won't." The boy grinned. "He might." The cowboy's voice cut once more, hard. "Do it then. Hang me too. Or admit you failed before they ever lifted a stone." The silence broke like glass. The sheriff's gun lowered, slow. His eyes darted around, seeing no one behind him. Not even the widow spoke now. The boy whispered, "He's cracking." The girl whispered back, "So's the town." The sheriff shoved his gun back into its holster, jaw tight. "This ain't finished." The cowboy's stare was steady. "It's finished when you stop pretending rope fixes guilt." The sheriff turned, pushing through the crowd, muttering curses under his breath. No one followed. The twins stood in the dirt, shaking but unbowed. The boy looked at the cowboy. "We'd have swung." The cowboy nodded. "Not today." The girl's eyes narrowed. "You didn't do it for us." The cowboy met her stare. "Didn't matter who for. Just mattered." The boy grinned faint. "They're scared of you now." The cowboy's voice was low. "Scared of themselves." The crowd broke apart, silent, heavy with shame. No one spoke as they drifted away. The preacher lingered, bowing his head. "God have mercy on us all." The widow finally spat in the dust. "This ends bloody. Mark it." She turned, apron snapping in the wind. The street emptied. Only the cowboy, the twins, and the echo of judgment remained. The boy whispered, "We won." The girl shook her head. "No, we were spared." The cowboy slung the rifle back on his shoulder, walking toward the cabin. "Both mean the same." The twins followed, shadows stretching long in the fading light. Behind them, the broken silence of the town hung like a sentence not yet spoken. The morning broke with silence too heavy. The boy stepped out first, stretching against the cold. He froze. The girl joined him, eyes widening. Letters sprawled across the fence in dripping red. Their names, crude, jagged strokes. The boy whispered, "That's blood." The girl swallowed. "Ours." The cowboy came out behind them, jaw tightening at the sight. He didn't flinch. He didn't curse. He just stared long, then walked slow toward the fence. The boy muttered, "Who did it?" The girl hissed, "Everyone." The cowboy knelt, touched the paint with 2 fingers, smelled it. His face stayed grim. Animal blood. The boy spat. "Don't make it better." The girl asked, "Why our names?" The cowboy's voice was low. "Because they want you scared." The boy's fists clenched. "It won't work." But his voice shook. The girl whispered, "It's a warning." The cowboy stood, wiping his fingers on his coat. "Then I hear it." The widow's voice cut across the yard, sharp as a blade. She stood by the path, apron fluttering. "It ain't just warning, it's promise." The girl glared. "You did it?" The widow's eyes narrowed. "Don't need to. Town's full of hands willing." The boy barked, "Cowards!" The widow stepped closer, pointing at the fence. "They'll kill the children." The cowboy's eyes never left hers. "Not while I breathe." The twins heard. For the first time, their defiance cracked. They looked at each other, fear slipping in behind their anger. The girl whispered, "They mean it." The boy muttered, "He does too." The widow sneered, "You think one man can stop a town? You're fool enough." The cowboy's voice stayed flat. "Maybe." She spat in the dirt. "Maybe don't buy graves." She turned, walking back down the path. The boy shouted after her, "We ain't scared." But his hands trembled. The girl grabbed his arm, whispering fast, "We should be." The cowboy wiped the last of the blood from the fence with his sleeve. His movements were steady, almost ritual. The boy finally asked, "Why protect us?" The cowboy muttered, "Didn't protect, just stood." The girl pressed, "That the same?" He didn't answer. Inside the cabin, the twins sat close to the fire. Their voices stayed low. The boy whispered, "If they come with rope, we fight." The girl shook her head. "If they come with fire, we burn." The cowboy's voice cut from his chair. "Neither. You stay alive." The boy scoffed. "Alive how?" The cowboy leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "By outlasting." The girl frowned. "And if we can't?" He met her eyes steady. "Then I fail." The boy muttered, "You'll fail anyway." The cowboy sat back. "Maybe, but not tonight." Night fell heavy. The fence stood black against the moon, faint stains still clinging where the blood had sunk deep. The girl couldn't stop staring at it through the window. The boy whispered, "They want us gone." She whispered back, "They want us dead." The cowboy's voice came from the dark corner. "They want quiet. Your noise they can't ignore." The boy hissed, "Then we'll shout louder." The cowboy shook his head. "Shouting don't save. Standing does." The girl asked, "How long can you stand?" He answered without pause, "As long as it takes." The boy laughed bitter. "Till they kill you." The cowboy's voice stayed calm. "Then I'll die first." The girl's chest tightened. "And us?" He looked at her, eyes hard. "Not while I breathe." The words settled deep. The boy glanced away, jaw tight. The girl pulled her knees close, whispering faint, almost to herself. "What if he don't breathe long?" The fire crackled. No one answered. By dawn, the blood had dried into the wood, dark stains etched like scars. The fence bore their names still, silent and accusing. The twins stood in front of it, side by side. The boy whispered, "Feels like a curse." The girl touched the letters with trembling fingers. "Feels like a grave." The cowboy stepped out behind them, rifle slung. "Feels like nothing, till you give it meaning." The boy turned. "You don't see." The cowboy's voice was low. "I see enough." The girl whispered, And I'm still breathing." They stared at him, unsettled. For the first time, the promise didn't feel like enough. The town had marked them. Blood or not, the message was clear. And the fence stood as proof that silence would never be safe again. The sound of hooves broke the morning stillness. 4 riders came down the road, dust rising behind them. Their coats were clean, their boots polished, and each carried the weight of authority in the way they sat their horses. The lead man held a folder thick with papers. The town followed at a distance, whispering, watching. The twins stood on the porch, eyes narrowing. The boy muttered, "Not town folk." The girl said, "Worse." The cowboy stepped out, rifle resting against his shoulder. He didn't move to greet them, just waited. The lead rider swung down, boots striking hard. He pulled a paper free, voice sharp. "By order of the governor, the children are to be taken into custody, to the capital." The boy barked a laugh. "We ain't property." The girl spat in the dirt. "Ain't going nowhere." The rider ignored them, turning to the cowboy. "Step aside." The cowboy's voice was flat. "No." The man frowned. "You don't decide this." The cowboy's tone stayed steady. "I already did." The second rider dismounted, unfolding another paper. "They're wards of the state, not yours." "You have no claim." The cowboy's eyes narrowed. "They're mine." The boy blinked. "Yours?" The girl whispered, "He said it." The sheriff stepped forward from the crowd, silent until now. He didn't speak, only watched, arms crossed, measuring the air. The lead rider barked, "This is bigger than your cabin, bigger than your town." The cowboy's rifle shifted slightly in his grip. "Town don't feed 'em. State don't either. I do." The crowd stirred, whispers growing. Mothers clutched children tighter. Men spat in the dirt but didn't step closer. The girl clung to the cowboy's coat. "Don't let 'em." The boy muttered, "We ain't leaving." The rider snapped, "Children don't decide." The cowboy said, "Neither do papers." The second rider's jaw tightened. "Defy the governor, you hang." The cowboy's stare didn't waver. "Then hang me." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even the widow shifted, unsettled. The boy grinned sharp. "He means it." The girl whispered, "Shut up. Just hold." The lead writer stepped closer, folding the paper back. "You're a fool," the cowboy answered. "Maybe, but I'm their fool." The boy's grin faltered. The girl's grip tightened. The sheriff finally spoke, voice low. "You stir this town into fire." The cowboy didn't look at him. "Better fire than rope." The riders exchanged glances, unease creeping in. One muttered, "Not worth it." The lead snapped. "Orders are orders." The cowboy's voice was calm. "Orders don't bury you. People do." The sheriff's eyes flicked across the crowd. He saw no one stepping forward, no hand reaching for the twins. He stayed quiet, calculating. The girl said loud, "We ain't going." The boy echoed, "Not alive." The lead rider turned on them. "You'll obey." The cowboy's rifle rose a fraction, not aimed, just enough. His voice cut sharp. "They already obey. To me." The crowd hushed, silence thick. The riders froze. Caught between paper and bullet, the sheriff muttered, "He won't shoot." The cowboy said, "Try me." The lead rider cursed, shoving the papers back into the folder. "This ain't done." The cowboy answered, "It is here." They mounted up, horses restless, hooves striking sharp against the dirt. The riders turned back down the road, dust swallowing them. The crowd didn't cheer, didn't move. They just stared, heavy with unease. The boy whispered, "They'll come back." The girl nodded. "With more." The cowboy muttered, "Then we stand again." The widow's voice cut from the crowd, bitter. "One man against the governor. You'll die for them." The cowboy's eyes stayed hard. "Not while I breathe." The twins looked at him, shaken, clinging tighter now, not just to his coat, but to the silence he carried like a shield. The sheriff lingered last, staring at the cowboy. His voice was low, meant for him alone. "This town breaks before you do." The cowboy didn't answer. He turned, guiding the twins back inside. The sheriff stayed behind, watching the porch, watching the fence where blood still stained the wood, watching the cabin that had become the center of something he could no longer control. And for once he said nothing at all. The night was quiet. Too quiet. The twins lay by the fire, half asleep, when the first shout carried from outside, then the sound of boots in the dirt, then a voice. "Burn it!" The boy sat up fast. "They're here." The girl clutched his arm. "Don't move." The cowboy was already on his feet, rifle in hand. He blew out the lantern, plunging the cabin into dark. Only the faint glow of the fire remained. Another voice shouted outside. "Torch it and let the flames do the work." The girl whispered, "They'll kill us." The boy whispered back, "Not if we fight." The cowboy's voice was calm, steady. "Stay low. Stay quiet." The window burst with sudden light as a torch flew, striking the wall outside. Flames licked fast along the boards. The girl screamed, covering her mouth with her hand. The cowboy kicked the door open, rifle raised. In the yard, figures stood in the dark, one torch still burning in a hand. The sheriff's voice cut loud. "End it now!" The boy hissed. "It's him!" The cowboy fired first. The crack split the night, louder than thunder. The torch dropped. The sheriff staggered, eyes wide, clutching his chest. He fell hard into the dirt, silence slamming after him. The twins froze. The girl whispered, trembling, "You killed the law." Wolves howled from the hills, long and sharp, carrying through the night. The sound made the crowd flinch, men stumbling back into the dark. The cowboy lowered the rifle, smoke curling from the barrel. His voice was flat. "Law killed itself." The boy crawled to the doorway, peeking out. The crowd was breaking, men retreating, some dragging the sheriff's body, others vanishing into the brush. The fire on the wall smoldered but didn't catch. The girl crouched beside him, eyes wide, heart hammering. She whispered, "They'll come back." The boy nodded. "With more." The cowboy shut the door, bolted it again. He poured water over the flames, licking the boards. Smoke filled the cabin, thick and sour. The girl choked, coughing. "What do we do now?" The cowboy set the bucket down, voice low. "Bury him." The boy's eyes widened. "The sheriff?" The cowboy nodded once. The girl shook her head. "You can't. The town already left him." The cowboy cut in. Silence pressed. The fire hissed low, shadows trembling against the walls. The boy whispered, "They'll call you murderer." The cowboy's jaw tightened. "Already do." The girl's voice cracked. "And us." His eyes met hers, steady. They'll call you mine." The boy's fists clenched. "We didn't shoot." The cowboy looked back at the rifle, smoke still fading from the barrel. "Didn't matter who pulled the trigger. The rope don't care." The girl shivered. "I heard Mama again. Outside, just before the torch." The cowboy snapped, harsher than before. "No." Her eyes welled. "She said my name." He gripped her shoulder firm. "That well lies. Don't listen." The boy pulled her back, glaring. "Stop talking to her like that." The cowboy stepped away, voice hard. "You want to live, you listen to me. Not ghosts, not law. Me." The twins crouched close together, silent, shaken. The girl whispered against her brother's ear. "He's not scared." The boy whispered back, "He should be." Outside, the wolves howled again. Closer this time, echoing through the hills. The town's voices had faded, but the sound of the wild remained, circling them in the dark. The cowboy sat back in his chair, rifle across his lap. His face was calm, but his hands were steady in a way that felt dangerous. The girl whispered, "It's done." The boy shook his head. "It just started." The fire dimmed low, smoke curling up the chimney. The sheriff's blood soaked the dirt outside, black in the moonlight. And the cabin waited, heavy with silence, as if the walls themselves knew the balance had been broken for good. The morning air was thick with smoke that wasn't from their fire. The cowboy led the twins past the barn, past the fence still scarred with blood letters, toward the patch of ground no one tended. The well waited, boards crooked, chains slack. The boy muttered, "Why here?" The girl whispered, "He knows something." The cowboy didn't speak. He pried the cover loose, wood groaning as it shifted. A sour draft rose from the dark. The twins leaned closer, peering down. The girl gasped. "Look!" Ash floated across the water, gray flakes swirling, sticking to the stones. The boy's face drained pale. "It's him, the sheriff." The girl's voice shook. "They threw him down there." The cowboy didn't answer. He stared into the dark a long moment, jaw tight, then shoved the cover back hard until it sealed the hole. The boy's voice cracked. "Say it. It's him." The cowboy's tone was flat. "No more looking." The girl grabbed his arm. "Why won't you say?" He pulled free. "Because some things don't need saying." The boy shouted, "That's a lie. You know it's him." The cowboy's eyes narrowed. "And if it is?" The girl's lips trembled. "Then he's still here." The cowboy muttered, "Not here. Gone." The boy shook his head fast. "Not gone if we can see it." The cowboy stepped close, voice sharp. "You want to live? Then leave the dead where they lay." The girl whispered, "But the well speaks." "Then stop listening." The cowboy snapped. Silence pressed heavy, only the wind stirring the grass. The boy whispered, "We're cursed." The girl nodded. "Blood on the fence, ash in the water. We're marked." The cowboy set his hand on the cover, palm firm. His voice dropped low. "You're alive. That's the only mark that matters." The girl's eyes filled. "For how long?" The cowboy didn't answer. He turned, walking back toward the cabin. The twins lingered, staring at the covered well. The boy muttered, "It's him." The girl whispered, "And he's waiting." They followed slow, but their eyes kept flicking back, as though the well pulled at them, whispering even with its mouth shut. The cowboy didn't look back once. The night was still, the cabin quiet except for the fire snapping low. The twins sat close together, whispering, their voices sharp from everything left unsaid. The cowboy leaned in his chair, rifle across his lap, hat pulled low, silent as ever. The boy finally broke the silence. "You ain't told us who you are." The cowboy didn't move. The girl pressed. "We've been here long enough. You hide behind that hat, that rifle, that silence. But who are you?" The cowboy's jaw worked, but no words came. The boy leaned forward, fists tight. "Say it." The cowboy shook his head. "Names don't change nothing." The girl snapped. "Then why keep yours buried?" The boy added, "Unless you ashamed." The cowboy's eyes lifted, sharp. "Careful." The boy smirked. "We ain't scared." The girl whispered, "Not of you." The firelight danced on the cowboy's face, shadows deepening the lines carved there. He let out a breath, heavy. "Name's not yours to carry." The boy barked a laugh. "Everything about you's ours now. You dragged us into it." The cowboy's voice rose, harder. "I dragged you out. Out of rope. Out of fire. The girl glared. Out of town. Into curse. The cowboy's lips pressed tight. The boy pushed harder. You talk big, but you ain't clean. Nobody's clean. The cowboy stared into the fire. Silence stretched. Finally he muttered, You want it so bad? Fine. The twins leaned closer. The cowboy's voice came low. Warn. Elias. The word hung heavy in the smoke. The fire popped. The boy blinked. That it? The girl frowned. Elias. She tasted it like something strange on her tongue. Don't fit. The cowboy gave a tired half smile. Never did. The boy laughed. We thought you'd say something fierce. Something sharp. The girl shook her head. Don't matter. The cowboy's eyes flicked up, searching their faces. It matters enough. The boy shrugged. Not to us. The girl's voice was steady. You're ours now. The cowboy exhaled, shoulders sagging as though years finally lifted. His voice softened. Don't know if that's curse or blessing. The boy grinned. Both. The girl nodded. Always both. Silence followed, but it wasn't the same silence. It was thinner, lighter, like a weight had shifted. The boy whispered, Elias, sounds weak. The cowboy smirked faint. Then you ain't listening right. The girl studied him. You carried it alone all this time? He nodded once. The boy muttered, No wonder you're bitter. The cowboy's eyes narrowed. Better bitter than buried. The girl's gaze softened. Not alone anymore. The cowboy looked at her, something flickering in his eyes he didn't let show often. You sure? The boy snapped. We ain't leaving. The girl echoed, Not now. The cowboy leaned back, closing his eyes. Then it's settled. The boy whispered, We broke him. The girl shook her head. No, he let us in. The fire crackled louder, filling the space between them. The boy finally asked, Why keep it secret? The cowboy's voice was low. Name carries weight. Folks hear it. They remember things I don't want remembered. The girl tilted her head. Bad things. He didn't answer. The boy smirked. Means yes. The cowboy's jaw tightened. Means leave it. The girl leaned forward, firm. Not anymore. It's ours now, too. The cowboy opened his eyes, weary. Then carry it careful. The boy laughed. We don't carry careful. The girl whispered, We will this time. The cowboy gave a slow nod, like he believed her more than him. Outside, the wind howled low. The boy shivered, but not from cold. Town won't stop. The cowboy's voice was even. Neither will we. The girl asked, You ready to kill more? He met her eyes steady. If I must. The boy grinned. Good. The girl frowned. Not good. Just true. The cowboy sighed, voice heavy. Truth don't care what you call it. The girl studied him again, softer now. Elias. He looked at her, waiting. She said it again, slower. Elias. Something in his shoulders eased more. The boy muttered, Still sounds weak. The cowboy smirked faint. Then stay close. Maybe it'll grow on you. The girl whispered, It already has. The fire dimmed, shadows stretching across the cabin walls. The boy yawned, curling closer to the hearth. Elias. He said it once, mocking, then softer, almost testing. Elias. The cowboy leaned back in his chair, eyes closed. That's enough. The girl whispered, Not enough. Never enough. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. For the first time, it felt like a bond, fragile but real. The boy drifted toward sleep, muttering, He's ours now. The girl stayed awake longer, watching the cowboy, watching his chest rise and fall. She whispered one last time, Elias. His shoulders rose, then sagged as though years slipped off, and the night held them all, not as strangers, not as lawless, but as something else, bound by choice, not blood. Dawn came pale and slow. The cabin stood scarred. Black streaks on the wood where fire had licked, but still standing. Smoke rose weak from the chimney. The yard was quiet. No crowds, no sheriff, only silence. The cowboy worked at the fence, sleeves rolled, hammer steady. The old bloodstains were still there, faint but stubborn, in the grain. He nailed a new plank over one, driving it hard. The twins sat on the porch, side by side, watching. The boy kicked at the step. He fixes like nothing happened. The girl muttered, Something always happened. The boy asked, So what now? The girl shrugged. Town ain't coming today. He squinted. Tomorrow? Maybe. The cowboy glanced over. Hearing, but not stopping his work, the boy called out, "We staying?" The hammer stopped mid-swing. The cowboy rested against the post, breath long. "If you want," the girl frowned. "That's it." "That's it." The boy pressed. "Not an order." The cowboy shook his head. "Never was." The girl studied him. "So it's choice now." He met her eyes. "Always was. Just had to see it." The boy leaned back, muttering, "Feels strange." The girl whispered, "Feels like hours." They sat quiet, the sound of hammer strikes filling the space between. Finally, the girl asked, "We safe?" The cowboy answered without looking up, "No, but safer." The boy grinned faint. "Good enough." The girl's shoulders eased. For the first time, she nodded. The boy nodded too. The cowboy drove the last nail deep, then stood back, shoulders sagging. The fence held. The cabin held. And so did they. Not town, not law, not blood, just choice.